This call team books over 5,000 appointments every single month, generating over 8 figures in revenue between the solar and roofing clients. In this video, we're gonna go over step by step how they're able to do this. I'm Nick, one of the co-founders here at NCT Media, and pretty much what we do is help solar and roofing companies scale their businesses using paid ads. Today I have Kevin with me. So Kevin actually manages our entire call team at NCT, and we're gonna go through how we're able to book tens of thousands of appointments a year with our call team. All right, Kevin, introduce yourself. How did you start in this call team space? How did you get from 0 callers to scaling the call team to 150 heads strong?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got started in solar marketing. I saw that there was a huge need for appointments and just marketing in general. Every solar guy, they were just door knocking, didn't really understand how to generate more appointments for themselves other than door knocking. So kind of got started in the call center space. Like anyone, I just hired my first caller through Facebook groups.
Okay.
And I mean, just started with one caller, slowly scaled that operation, got the dialer, got the data, kept scaling one by one, and then pretty soon, I mean, we're running a 150-person machine.
Got it. So like in order to get to that scale, like 150 callers, how did you have the call team structured in order to like support that scale? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, it all comes down to kind of your systems and processes, or like your SOPs, right? For you to scale, like every additional caller that you bring on, you need to have the right processes in place, the right training, the right structure, the right onboarding, so that you can basically keep expanding it, right? Like without having to kind of micromanage everything.
Got it.
And so, besides the SOPs, I would say also another thing is managers. You want to have freaking phenomenal managers within your team so that you can kind of lean on them to kind of handle the interview process, the training process, and all that stuff. Yeah, so like I said, it's the SOPs, like the systems and processes you have, and also the manager you have, right? Okay. You want to have a really good lean system to making sure that you can kind of do this on repeat without having to be involved in the business, right? So we'll go over the SOPs. So within the SOPs, you want to first have your hiring process, right? Like, how do you hire people? Like, what is the process with that? Like, what are the systems that you do? Like for us, what we do is that we have headhunters that kind of go out into a lot of different Facebook groups. They're constantly looking at, they're constantly promoting within the Facebook groups, putting salaries, looking for hires and all that kind of stuff. And then they run through an interview process, right? So we have employees that specifically just do that. We also run Facebook ads to kind of hire more people. So we'll run ads to Mexico, right? And just basically saying, it's like a 1-minute video telling them like, hey, we're looking for callers, submit an application, right? And then we have a team that kind of goes through that process. So that's kind of the hiring process, right? You want to have a really good hiring process so that, it's on repeat.
Got it. And in terms of the Facebook groups, because it seems like a lot of it, like with the headhunters and just like Facebook groups in general, like do you just look up like call team Facebook groups? Like how do you find those Facebook groups?
Yeah, so we're in both the solar and roofing industry right now. So there's a lot of different Facebook groups out there, right? So, I mean, I would just literally search up call center groups on Facebook and just join every single one that has over 50,000 members.
Got it.
Right? Okay. Like, so your headhunters, like they're going to be in 30 different groups, just constantly posting every single day in every single group.
Got it.
Right?
Okay.
And it kind of like goes back to kind of the SOPs, right? Why they're so important is because if you have a headhunter going through 30 different groups, they're going to get thousands of applicants every single day. So how do we actually like systemize and go through that, cleanly, right? And make sure that we're not missing anything and also do it effectively. So the way we do it is that we just have a Google form. The applicant fills out the information and they just send us a Loom video, right? And that within that Loom video, we're able to basically determine how good they are based on the way they talk, based on their experience. And then, I mean, honestly, the biggest thing that we care about is just the way they talk and how fluent they are in English.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's kind of the hiring process. Then you have kind of the onboarding process, right? Once you decide to hire these guys, how do you transition them to your team, right? Because there's a lot of different things they're gonna have to learn. They're gonna have to learn how the dialer works, exactly what systems and processes we have as a company, like what are our requirements for what an appointment is. Because even though they may have call center experience, they're not gonna have our specifications or our requirements, right? Some call centers, like for example in solar, they don't need credit. But for us, like we need every appointment to have 650 plus credit, right? So you want to make sure your onboarding process is really good and not just have them freeball whatever they want, because it's going to be a huge mess. So you're going to have unqualified appointments. You're going to have not the best appointments. It's just going to be completely out of your SOP of what you're trying to deliver.
Got it.
Right? So onboarding is basically just getting them into what your company is, your company values, and also just making sure that they're in a dialer and they're able to take calls and their systems are working properly.
Got it. If you can break down a little bit more specifically, like how the onboarding looks in like 5 seconds, like how does that look?
Yeah,
steps that they go through.
That's a great question. So like, let's say they go through the hiring process, right? We let them know, hey, we want to hire you. Now we begin the onboarding process. The way it looks systematically for us is that we just send them a link and we do like general onboarding. So like every morning our manager is like, he knows at 9 a.m. Pacific, he has a call that he has to take and it's an onboarding call. And we'll just do like a group onboarding. So keep it really efficient. There can be 20 guys in there. Go through the onboarding process, go through the dialer, answer any questions. It's gonna take probably around 2 hours and to get everybody into the system. And you can just have that routinely. Like we do it like Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays for our sake. But like if you're not hiring that many people, I mean, you can do it every Friday. Whatever you're looking for.
Got it. Okay. And then after onboarding, so people are in the team now. So I'm curious like how the team is structured in terms of management positions. You know, to keep a call team pumping at 150 agents, like I'm assuming there's a very robust system of management to keep everything in place. So what does that look like?
I'm kind of just going to break down exactly how our process looks like for our 150 call agents, because I think it's a really robust and like strong system. But essentially the most important thing is that there needs to be management at all different levels, right? All the way from the bottom all the way to the top, which is me, right? And if you don't have a clean management process, it's really bad because the agent or the employee that you have is not going to know who to go to when they have questions, when they have concerns, or like who has the hierarchy to be able to fire someone, right? All that kind of stuff. So the way we do it within our system is within our outbound team, right, or within both of our teams, we have a small team of 5 agents at the very bottom. Like these are just 5 agents. They call every single day, whether it's outbound or inbound. And then above them is 1 manager. And the reason why we keep it from 5 to 1 is because we found out through data is that as you increase the call team too much under 1 manager, it starts to get too hectic, right? Like imagine managing 5 guys and, going through, every day you're running the morning meeting with them. You're going through their calls. You're giving them feedback. You're helping them with day-to-day operations. 5 people is enough for you to really hone in, master their skill set, and also make sure they're giving them all the attention that they deserve, right? We've had issues where in the past we ran like 1 manager for 20 agents, and like there'll be a morning call and like we don't even know how many agents are on the dialer. Like we don't even know why someone's MIA, whatever that reason is, right? Because it's just too many people for 1 person. So this is how we do our structure. I kind of think of it as like a pyramid, right? So at the very bottom, you have your callers, right? These are just going to be the people that are kind of the grunts or like the door knockers, right? At the roofing and solar world. Like they just door knock, they set the appointment, they're actually doing majority of your fulfillment.
They're the ones pushing the volume.
Exactly.
Got it.
And then on top of them, you're going to have management. Right. So these are people managing these callers. Like I said before, you want to have 1 manager for every 5 callers to make sure that, they're giving them the right attention. And then above that, depending on how many managers you have, you're going to need another manager, like head manager, right?
Managing the managers.
Exactly. Okay. Because at the same time, like even though like the manager is managing callers, you need someone managing them, right, to make sure they're in line, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? And then at the very end, after this head manager, depending how big your team is, like you could potentially have another head manager, and then
manager like, managing the managers,
managing the head manager, and at the very top is you or me, right? It's me. So that's kind of how our system operates. Like it's just like top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. Like you have your grunts at the bottom, guys that are door knocking, then the manager are managing them, and then on top of that we have hire managers, and then at the top of that is just me.
Got it. Quick question. So I want to know the functions of like each management position. So the people that are like directly over the caller. So this, that one right here, like right over the callers. What is their actual function of management? Like what do they do in the day-to-day?
No, that's a great question. So basically, I mean, the most important thing is making sure the callers are producing, right? Their team is producing. We call it pods within our company. So like, we'll call this like, let's say, Joe is this manager managing 5 callers, like pod Joe, Joe's pod, right? So when we look at it from a company scale, those managers, that manager Joe, he wants to make sure his team is producing, right? So number 1, we want to have morning meetings with the team, right?
So just with his 5 callers?
Just with his 5 callers, he's going to have a meeting.
Okay.
Right? And he's going to go over kind of the day before, what their KPIs look like, how many appointments they booked, all that kind of stuff. And he's going to answer any questions the callers may have, whether regard their pay, time off, promotions, whatever it is, he's going to answer those questions.
Okay, got it.
Right? And then he's also going to do like individual training with them.
Good.
One-on-one training is probably one of the most important things to implement. You want to give time and attention to every single caller, and that 1 to 5 ratio, he's going to be able to give that attention every single week.
And I'm assuming that's why things kind of fell apart when it was like 1 to 20.
Yeah,
because it's really hard for a manager to like give individual attention to each.
Our SOP right now for our managers to give an hour a week per agent.
Okay.
Right? If you're managing 20 guys, that's 20 hours a week. That's like half of your entire week, 20 hours straight, just
on
one-on-one.
individuals.
That's literally impossible.
Yeah.
Right. So you're gonna slip up. You're gonna make mistakes and all that kind of stuff.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So and the managers above those, so the head managers.
Yeah.
So they're managing the managers of the pods. So
Exactly.
what do they do?
So I would say our operation is pretty unique because of how many callers we actually have. So we need this. I would say most companies, you don't need a head manager managing the managers. That can just be you if you're managing a smaller team.
Yeah.
But in terms of what our head management does is that they manage the managers and that pod to make sure they're producing. Because if a manager is managing the callers and they're not producing, yeah, he's on their ass, but someone needs to be on his ass or else he's not going to care as much.
Yeah.
Right? So they're on their ass in terms of how the pod actually functions and how many appointments they're delivering as a whole team. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is they're also helping these managers hire more callers. So like one of the managers may be like, hey, like Joe, right? He's managing his 5 callers. He's like, hey, one of my callers is just like, it's just not working out. I'm gonna need another one. So that head manager is gonna help them find another agent.
Got it. Okay.
Right. And also just dealing with pay, with bonuses within the management side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is the head manager the headhunter themselves, or they work with the headhunters?
It can be either or. Sometimes. Most of the time within our organization, we have the headhunters as separate, and then the head management actually manages the headhunters.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, but you can do either or, right? Like this head management could find callers too.
Okay.
I would say another big way that we hire, that I didn't talk about briefly, is that a lot of our hiring is from referrals. Like a lot of our hiring, like it's a really, really great way to hire these because the call center industry is not that big. Right, it's a pretty niche industry, and all these guys know each other. So they know there's a great caller, and we have a referral bonus. They're gonna bring them into our company. We vet them, we like them. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the time, we get a lot of agents from these referrals.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then the last step, like obviously you at the top. So how do you, like in your day to day, like how do you interact with those head managers to make sure the whole system is functioning?
So I mean, I kind of just deal with all the BS that goes into everything of issues that none of these guys are able to solve, right? So like if the head manager is having issues with management, like maybe a manager is not listening to head management, I need to kind of solve that and kind of be the lubricant to like solving those kind of issues, right? So it can range from literally anything, but in terms of a day-to-day operation, I'm mostly on meetings with the head managers, seeing what the KPIs are, seeing if we need to pull data, all that kind of stuff.
Got it. Okay. So like you're just kind of like, at this point, you're just looking at numbers, make sure things are running smoothly.
Exactly. Like they deal with, like, I don't even deal with most of these callers. Like probably 95% of our team, on a 150-person team, I've never talked to. Like I only talk to like the top 15 guys.
Got it.
Right. So like I'm completely out of the operation in terms of callers and like 90% of the managers. Like I don't communicate with them.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And is this different like inbound versus outbound, or is this kind of like the same structure like for both?
I would say it's basically the same structure. You're gonna have the structure where you want to have that 5-to-1 for the management, and depending on how many managers you have, then you want to get a head manager, and depending on how many head managers you have, you want to get that another manager to manage that head manager. But in terms of the process, it's pretty much the same.
Got it. Okay. And then obviously here at NCT, like we have a big outbound call team. We also have an inbound call team. So in your opinion, like in 2025, like what do you think is the way to go in terms of like outbound versus inbound?
Yeah, it's a great question. I definitely think there's pros and cons to both. They both have a lot of pros. They both have some cons, right? I would say in 2025 now, I think the better direction to go is the inbound way, and I kind of explained why. So specifically, an inbound call team is a team that they call leads that come into our system based on ads that we generate, leads that are generated through ads, right? So these are very, very high intent customers that like for example, our roofing side, they're already looking for a new roof, right? So when our caller calls them and we connect with them, like we're booking these at an 80% rate.
Got it.
Right, so it's a very, very high booking rate, so we don't require as many callers. Like if we have to fulfill let's say we had to do 100 appointments a day, and an inbound call team, we only need like 10 callers. But an outbound call team, what's different is that they're actually just cold calling homeowners, right? We're gonna need a much, much more bloated team to kind of deal with 100 appointment fulfillment in one day versus an inbound team that's only needing 10 callers.
Got it.
I mean, like more people is just gonna create more problems.
100%. Right? So I mean, for 100 appointments a day, like approximately, like obviously it varies, but how many callers do you think you need on the outbound side?
You're gonna need at least 50.
Like 50, so 5 times the amount of callers
at the very minimum.
So then that means more managers and then more moving parts.
So like, would you rather, as a company, would you rather be managing 50 callers, or would you rather be managing 10 callers? It's the same as a door knocking team, right? What if you could have a door knocking team of just 10 freaking killers, or 50 mediocre callers
100%.
that are just doing a different fulfillment.
Okay, so in terms of the upsides of the outbound side versus the inbound side, like what would you say that looks like?
Got it. Yeah, that's a great question. So we can kind of dive into this. We can look at both the pros and cons of the outbound versus the inbound.
Okay.
Because they both kind of do different things, right? So in terms of kind of the benefits with the outbound is that it's a lot of a simpler model, right? Within outbound, all you really care about is your callers, your dialer, and your data. Okay, so those are the only three functions you care about. Make sure callers are producing, right? That's just like basically training and all that kind of stuff. Dialer, it's just kind of the software that the callers use, right? You want to make sure that's working. That's a very simple process. And then make sure that the data that the dialer is feeding to these callers is good. Like, are we connecting with the right person that we're trying to reach?
Yep.
Right, so it's a very simple functionality. Within inbound, it's a bit more unique in that you have to look at the callers, right? Make sure they're producing. You have to look at the system that your thing is built, right? It's not just a dialer because you have Facebook ads in here. So you want to make sure that the ads and the leads are going into the right system correctly, and then the callers are calling it, right? Why it's a bit more complicated is that you have to make sure that there are two functions with inbound. You have to make sure that the ads are producing. You have to make sure that the callers are producing. So you're looking at two completely separate variables. With outbound, it's kind of a lot simpler because you're just like dealing with callers, making sure the scripts are right, the dialer and the data. It's a very, very simple functionality.
Got it. So I mean, I guess the trade-off of that, so it's more simple in terms of like its function on the outbound, but you do need more callers to produce the same amount of volume. So I guess that would be like a con of the outbound.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
I would also say that something that is a benefit about the outbound is that you're a lot less variable in how much your costs are per appointment, right? With callers, data, and dialer, the data is always fixed. The dialer cost is always fixed. The caller cost, depending on how you structure it, it's going to be pretty fixed on like a per appointment basis.
Got it.
Right. So some areas are going to be harder to call, so you're going to get some variability in your cost per appointment. But in terms of inbound, that variability can be a lot higher because maybe some areas are just like horrible with ads, right? So our lead cost goes up and the callers are not booking as much, and then just your cost per appointment is just so much higher in some areas, which we see all the time, right? But in terms of the outbound side, it's a lot more consistent, and you're kind of getting a very similar appointment cost every single time.
Okay, so got it. That makes sense. So it's a little bit more fixed on the inbound side, but in terms of the result of those appointments that are being booked, so it's a little bit more variable on the inbound versus the outbound side, but like from what you have seen, what call team has been producing the most like deals closed, like cash collected, because that's what we care about the most?
I would say inbound, most definitely.
Okay.
And the reason why is because just because of the intent, right, of these leads. With inbound, what you're doing is we're just running an ad, right? It's like, hey, new solar program in Massachusetts, whatever it is, and then someone's interested, they're filling out their information, and it immediately gets routed to our caller of their information, and our caller calls it, right? So these are people that are taking the first step, right? They're already interested in the product a little bit, and then we just have to get over maybe some of the objections, maybe some of the questions that they have, but our booking rate is so much higher, and the intent is there because they opted in. They're the one that took the first step. With outbound, when we're cold calling, we're basically door knocking here, right? You're trying to generate interest of something that someone might not give a crap about.
You're shooting in the dark.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So you're dealing with a lot more number, you're dealing with a lot more people, but in terms of intent, like it's just so much stronger with inbound because they're kind of interested first.
Okay, so for the people watching out there that are just starting a call team, or they're looking into starting a call team, what do you recommend for them, like inbound versus outbound, and how to get that going?
Got it. If you're starting out, I definitely recommend doing outbound, just because it's so much simpler. I'll break it down real quick. But basically, again, like your functionalities with the outbound is just callers, data,
and
dialer, right? So super simple. Data and dialer are always going to be the same thing. Like it's just a fixed cost. All you got to care about is your callers. Inbound, it's a bit more complicated, right? You have ads and you have callers and you have systems, right? Both of the callers and the Facebook ads are very variable, and it's a constant learning curve, right? You gotta learn which ads are working. You gotta fire and hire callers. A lot more moving parts. It's not as simple as a data and dialer. But so I would definitely recommend starting with outbound. And if you're looking to scale things up, I would recommend inbound, just because the intent is much higher, the scalability is a lot easier, and I mean you're able to scale in just multiple markets like with the snap of a finger.
Got it. So for inbound, it's more like you press a button and increase your ad spend, hire a couple callers, and then outbound you have to hire like 10 times more callers
Exactly.
for the same output.
Like the scalability is so much higher. Yeah, like you don't have to hire as many inbound callers because like they're converting every single one of them. But for outbound, since it's cold calling, you're gonna need a lot more employees.
Got it. So let me get this right. So somebody who's like starting out, they might not have a ton of experience or like budget, like start with outbound. But if you're somebody who's like already has an existing company and you're looking to scale and you want to scale quick, inbound's the move.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Kevin, I appreciate your time, man.
Absolutely, brother.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, guys. So that was Kevin. He gave us the entire breakdown on how outbound versus inbound call teams function and everything that goes along with that. If you guys are curious on how we can do this all for you, there should be a link somewhere in the description where you could book a call. We'll talk to you guys, see where you're at, and potentially help you out. Other than that, appreciate it. Talk to you guys soon.